Welcome to Inclusion Bites, your sanctuary for bold conversations that spark change. I'm Joanne Lockwood, your guide on this journey of exploration into the heart of inclusion, belonging, and societal transformation. Ever wondered what it truly takes to create a world where everyone not only belongs, but thrives? You're not alone. Join me as we uncover the unseen, challenge the status quo, and share stories that resonate deep within. Ready to dive in? Whether you're sipping your morning coffee or winding down after a long day, let's connect, reflect, and inspire action together. Don't forget, you can be part of the conversation too. Reach out to joe.lockwood@seechangehappen.co.uk to share your insights or to join me on the show. So adjust your earbuds and settle in. It's time to ignite the spark of inclusion with Inclusion Bites. And today is episode 214 with the title Resilience Beyond Barriers. And I have the absolute honour and privilege to welcome Misbah Gulzar. Misbah is a resilience-driven inclusion advocate with nearly 20 years' experience in the criminal justice system, navigating new beginnings while championing psychological safe and inclusive workplaces shaped by her own lived experience. When I asked Misbah to describe her superpower, she said that it is her resilience and patience, inspired by her children and strengthened through overcoming personal and professional barriers. Hello, Misbah. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Joanne. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much. Really looking forward to the next kind of hour with you. But yeah,
Absolute
amazing.
Pleasure. I always like to ask my guests whereabouts in the world they are.
Yeah, so I am in Stoke-on-Trent, which for people that don't know is in the Midlands and is famous for its pottery.
Yes, because if you drive through, you've got all the kilns, the pottery-shaped kilns.
Yeah.
Quite iconic.
It is definitely iconic. It's an industry that obviously with, the industrialisation is not something that is as evident, but there's still lots of working kilns within the area. So yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, you're probably, I think I said to you in the green room, you're probably the closest guest. And we're still, 200 miles apart. You're probably the closest guest I've had for a long while. So yeah, it's absolutely lovely to speak to someone from the UK for a change. So you look at the notes you sent in, you talked about resilience, inclusion, and you actually said that you've got 5 children and they've inspired you and taught you a lot over your recent life. But take us back to being a young woman. How did that shape your belief system?
So I grew up in a fairly strict South Asian Muslim household. I was one of 5 children. I was the only one that was able to go to university, so that was a huge privilege. I went away to university, got the necessary qualifications that I went to get, came back, and then, as with lots of South Asian communities, the question of marriage arose because I was at that age. I'd obviously seen the world. I'd seen it bigger than the northern mill town that I grew up in, and I wanted to see the rest of the world, and I wanted to be part of society as a whole. So at that point, I had to make a decision in terms of, there's 2 roads that I can travel down. I either continue on the path that I'm on and stay with my family, have the arranged marriage, be very unhappy and unsatisfied with life, or I decide to do my own journey. And obviously, whilst by doing my own journey, that would definitely mean consequences that I would have to really deal with along the way. So I did choose the latter. I did decide that actually didn't want an arranged marriage. I wasn't the type of person that could probably sustain that relationship. And that was partly due to having to have these multiple identities, trying to be somebody at home, and then when you're out of home, trying to be somebody else. So essentially that decision was made, and I left home and kind of tried to make it for myself, really. And that's when I had to I really understood what the world was and how difficult it was to navigate, how difficult it was to be on your own, how hard it was to just kind of get through the daily kind of routine of everything. So that then led me to, finding work subsequently after my degree that I completed. And then, it just kind of developed from there. So yeah, it's been quite a difficult journey, and it's taught me a lot. And I think part of my resilience has come from that, So yeah.
Actually, I know very little about arranged marriages, the cultural significance from your communities, and what that means in a 2026 context, if you like, maybe in a 1950s or 1960s context. But that must have been a huge, huge choice for you to step out of the family. It's almost like leaving a cult or something. You're being excommunicated. You're being shunned as being a non-conformer, and I'm going to put words in your mouth. If it sort of brought shame on your family, those type of things. So that's what you had to face. Can you go into that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I want to say from the outset that I'm an advocate for arranged marriages. I'm not against it. I think if they're done correctly, as in consent from both parties, and there's no coercion or anything of that nature, I think they're amazing in terms of. And I think statistics do show that the arranged marriages tend to have a bit of a higher success rate than love marriages. So that's what I want to say from the outset. In terms of the situation that I'd been, it was, a comfortable middle-class environment, a comfortable middle-class family. And I, like you said, I had to make that decision to leave that comfortableness, leave that ease of, not having to worry about anything, being protected and kind of almost living in a shell, to actually going into the big wide world where I'm going to be exposed to everything that I've never really been exposed to before. And Joanne, you mentioned the cultural aspect of it as well in terms of the shame. So you've got to think back 30 years ago, this was unheard of. There were very few females that would absolutely take that step. And it was a different generation as well back then. So when you look at today's generation, there's choice. There's absolute decision making. The coercion is a lot less, and we live in a different society, so it's not the same. But back 30 odd years ago, none of that existed. So the decision that I was making had a detrimental impact upon my family in terms of how they were viewed by the community. So my dad, God rest his soul, was a very highly respected member of the community. He's very religious. He was well thought of. My whole family was actually well thought of. So doing what I did essentially created, and I left behind so much kind of pain and suffering, if that makes sense, that they had to deal with on my behalf, which is difficult to kind of process, but I can imagine how hard that would have been. So they were left with having to answer the community, or, well, your daughter, where has she gone? Why is she not here? Why is she not married? What's happened to her? So all these questions I imagine my family would have had to experience and go through. That I'm not particularly okay with. However, I think if I hadn't have made that decision, then I wouldn't be sitting here today with you, and I wouldn't have the amazing life and progress that I've made, and all the achievements that I've made. That wouldn't be anything at all. It would be a completely different person sitting here right now.
Forgive me if I just ask you, you've got me curious. Had you got to the stage where prospective suitors were being lined up and you...
Yeah.
Again, I'm trying not to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
Had one of the prospective suitors been an ideal match, you may well have fallen in, but you found that they weren't suitable?
So the matches were predominantly from Pakistan. So I, at this point, was completely westernized, and I knew that I would not be able to have that communication level that I wanted with that person. And of course, with that person comes his culture, comes his kind of like perception of women, all of that he brings with him. So I was essentially, having to decide, am I able to give all that up to an individual, to another person to be in control of? So in terms of my siblings, they were different. So they were, in terms of their mindset, their cultural mindset, their religious mindset was completely different to mine because, I had had the opportunity to leave home. I had had the opportunity to see the world for what it was. They hadn't. They had been protected and they didn't know any other way. So I had that opportunity. So I just wanted to make sure that, and as hard as it was, and as difficult it was for me to kind of refuse my parents' wishes, I absolutely knew at the bottom, deep down, that I could never sustain anything like this, and it wasn't going to end well. So I was prepared to take the risk of leaving that comfortableness and making it out on my own and just taking whatever came in my way and dealing with it. I was that kind of strong in my belief. Some may say stupid, some may say, you don't know what you're letting yourself in for. How can you leave what you've got essentially is a perfect kind of setup to something that's going to be full of uncertainty? You're going to be shunned by your family, you're going to be disowned. You're not going to have a community. You're literally going to be on your own. So, all of this was kind of, and at that point I was like 19, 20, Joanne. So I wasn't even fully I know females mature quicker than males in terms of their maturity levels, but you've got to understand that I'd lived a very sheltered, very protected life. So there was lots of things that were going to be difficult that I had to face.
Again, I'm making some assumptions based on my own beliefs and biases. The Pakistani man would bring, as you say, their religious beliefs, their cultural beliefs, and almost treat you as property. You would have less choice and freedoms.
In my head, that was what my perception was, because what I saw was my sisters, and my sisters weren't badly treated or mistreated in any way, shape or form, but I saw that the lives that they led, their lives were simplistic, they were straightforward, they, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Baby machine.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Nothing.
But I knew that wasn't what I wanted. I knew that wasn't what I could kind of tolerate or accept. So for me, somebody from Pakistan, he's got his own belief systems. He's got this idea or perception of women. So would that mean that if I were to have a career, he would turn around and say, actually, no, you can't work. You need to be at home, or you can't dress like that, or you can't wear makeup? And these are things, and they're quite kind of large examples, but that was what was going on in my head, thinking I'm going to lose completely all of my identity, even though the identity that I've got is confused anyway, because I'm trying to be two people at the same time, and it's confusing. And then add another layer on top of that with somebody else coming in, and then I've got to adapt to his way of thinking and his belief system. So I think that for me was too much to kind of appreciate and understand.
This was, I mean, guessing from the language you're using, this is 20 or 30 years ago?
Yes. Yeah. It was a long time. And like I say, traditionally, my parents weren't of the mindset of freedom in that type of way. Whereas, you look at the parents today, and there isn't that push. You can go and have a love marriage. You can go and, choose your own partner. And I think one key thing that I kind of want to mention, and this isn't me coming from any place of importance or anything like that, but I think the decision that I made absolutely impacted positively on my nieces and nephews. So they didn't have to experience what I experienced. So they were able to choose freely. And now from, understanding who they've married, the majority of them haven't been Pakistani people. They've been Indian, or they've been from a different country. So all that pressure that was put on me, they had to be from Pakistan and nowhere else, and they had to be a certain caste. That didn't happen to them. And I think I know for sure that I probably was one of the reasons why I think that my sisters and my brother thought, we have to deal with this differently with our children, and we can't put them through potentially, what I was put through.
So as you say, you're not against arranged marriage. It's
Not at
just
all.
the mechanism and the level of, I suppose, collaboration. If your views and wishes were put into there, and you had some, can I say, buying criteria or profile criteria, then you might say, but absolutely, if you can meet this kind of aspiration for me,
Yeah.
I'd love you to find my perfect gentleman that's aligned to who you are today, if you like.
Absolutely, but those choices were presented to me. It was this or nothing. It was A, there wasn't a plan B or C. It was this is the person, and the person they wanted me to get married to was as a cousin from Pakistan. And I as lovely and as nice as he might have been, he wasn't the fit for me at all.
So again, if you don't mind me asking, what is the kind of criteria? Is it, well, I suppose top of the list is available. Is age a criteria? Is you say their caste, where they are in society, their wealth, the family connection? Is it all about trying to bring families together and enhance the overall family structure to get the perfect person to amplify and to connect you together? Is that kind of the motivation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When the situation of arranged marriages comes up, it's primarily to look within the extended family initially, because it is all about keeping the family together. I guess, you know your family better than you would know a complete stranger, because you've literally grown up with them and you understand how they are as people. So that's a positive thing. Obviously, if that's not possible, then you do look outside of your family, but the caste for a lot of people is very, very important. And I know that within the Hindu religion, caste is hugely, hugely important for different reasons. But within the Muslim culture, and again, it's not religion. So this is the other kind of battle that I had. So growing up, there was a lot of mixing up of culture and religion. So that line was almost erased. So they all combined into one. And that was very, very difficult for me to kind of understand. And for a while, I kind of rejected. I don't know if rejected is the right word or too much of a strong word, but I put my religion on pause because I didn't understand it. I didn't accept it completely because of the misunderstanding of it. But I think that's one of the things that, still happens today. But having now coming back to my religion and understanding the entirety of it, I see it in a completely different viewpoint. And lots of things that were associated with, well, this is a religious thing and that's why we're doing it. It wasn't a religious thing, it was a cultural thing. You read the Quran and you think, well, actually, that's not even in there. But yet I was told that I have to do this, or it's got to be done this way, it's got to be done that way. So for me, that clarity of, the difference between what is culture and what is religion is so important. And I think that was half my battle. And not blaming my parents for any of this, because you've got to understand that they were immigrants and they were, they came here in the 70s. They had to, absolutely had to day to day tolerate so much abuse. And I can't put myself in them shoes. I'm thankful that they, provided and they put me in a position that I'm in. But I think they had so much to contend with. And this was just another thing. So I think they did the best that they could with the resources and understanding that they had. So there's no, I'm not sitting here blaming my parents or saying they were bad people or my family. Not at all. I don't put any kind of anything like that at their door, because that would be completely unfair.
No, because they were caught up in the same construct of tradition and culture, expectation, and they're just trying to pass their traditions and culture and expectations onto you.
Yeah.
Because that's the expectation they have on them. Because, as you said, a lot of the shame was on them, not on you.
Yeah.
They weren't. They must have been bad parents for you to go off the rails and not be a good daughter.
Yeah.
So they probably had to absorb all of that.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing that really kind of I have had to battle with over the years. And, but then at some point you have to appreciate and again, you don't need their valid. And the other thing that I've tried to do over the years is get their validation. And I want to explain that a little bit more. So I want them, both my parents sadly have passed away now, but I wanted them to know and to see the achievements and what I had done with my life. I wanted them to be proud of me. I wanted them to kind of say, well, yeah, she did what she did, but look at how much she's accomplished on her own. So that, and for years and years, I used to crave for that validation. I wanted it, but then the realization hit me that, do you know what? That is important. And if it came, that would have been amazing. But actually, you have to validate yourself first. You shouldn't look to others for validation. And that was a key point for me to say, do you know what? As much as I would have liked my parents to see, that I've bought my own house, I'm a single parent, I've been through lots of situations with the marriage that I was in, but actually I'm still focused, I'm still a good human, I'm very respectable, I haven't been doing drugs or drinking or gone off the rails. I've been a perfectly respectable person. I've stayed true to who I am, and I've represented you in the best way possible. So yeah, and now, like I say, I don't search for that validation. I don't want it. I don't need it. And I think with having my kids as well, they're the only validation that I need. They're the only people that I need to not impress necessarily, but to be a good role model too.
So I'm again assuming here that you've now created your own new family culture and traditions where you're the beginning of it, and you've invented your own. This is what we do to your children, and that they're free to explore their faith, their religion, or not, or whatever makes sense to them, and then explore their life in a way that you didn't have the opportunity to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've got 5 children, 2 of whom are Muslim, and 3 are not currently Muslim. They're exploring, and again, it's something that I'm not pressurizing them, but I am there for the knowledge and the understanding and the support. And I think for me, I would love them. If I'm being completely honest, I would love them for all of them to be Muslim in the correct way. But of course, I'm not enforcing that. I just want them to be good adults. Adults, I just want them to be the best people that they can be, the best, people within society, and I think I'm proud of them regardless. They've, there's no disappointment here. They are, they've got good heads on their shoulders, and they've experienced lots of difficulties, and they've experienced something that perhaps their friends haven't, in terms of their mum and their mum's situation. So, my children are mixed race as well. So that's another layer that adds on to that. So they have to, navigate that aspect of it as well. But yeah, all in all, they're amazing, and I couldn't be more thankful.
That's wonderful. I know it's like to seek validation from your parents. I did a bit of I had a bit of a left turn when I was 16, 17, 18. I guess I went through the stage where I rebelled and I did something, and I brought a little bit of shame to my parents because of what I did. And I never really reconciled with my father until maybe the last couple of years of his life. And I realized I didn't need validation. I just needed him to understand that I've done okay. I may have caused him a lot of pain, may have caused him a lot of struggles, and I've done things that he probably is confused about. But I just want to say to him, it's very similar to you, I'm doing all right. I've got a couple of kids, I'm married, I'm still married after nearly 40 years, and I'm very successful, and I add value in the world and society. And you don't have to get it, just appreciate that I've not failed. And that's kind of all you want from your parents, really. And I think that's probably what I want from my children, is for them to look at me and go, don't always agree with each other, but as long as we all respect each other, that's all you can ask for.
No, absolutely. I had the opportunity to kind of get my father's forgiveness or reconciliation, whatever you want to call it. And he, sadly was at the later stages of his life. He suffered with leukemia towards the end. So he asked for me to come and see him, which was a hugely emotional experience, as you can imagine. I've not seen him for years and years. And, I sat next to, next to his hospital bed, and, we spoke a little bit, and he forgave me. And, that's all I kind of really wanted from him. So yeah, it was it was another turning point, but it was hugely difficult, but it was really welcome in the same way.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I was there when my father passed and he took his last breath. And I'm really pleased that we got to that point, because there's no point in having regrets after someone's passed. I didn't want him to carry that to his grave. I didn't want to get to a situation where we never reconciled. And luckily we did. And I'm always proud of the fact that at the end we were together.
Yeah. And it all worked out. Yeah. It's amazing.
And I look back and I know I could have done things differently. I had to share some of the challenges and he could have behaved differently. But in that last breath, none of that matters. I was holding his hand and that's all that mattered.
Absolutely.
He knew he wasn't alone. And I think that was the important thing for me. So I'm pleased you were able to reconcile, at least in parts. So you've had a career. I noticed that you spent a lot of time working in the criminal justice system. That must have been a challenge as well.
Yeah, so that was really interesting for me, because I guess before anyone steps into a prison, we've got our own stereotypes of what a prison looks like, how it operates, how dangerous it is. Obviously, I had all those stereotypes. And as I said earlier on, my intention was never to have a career within the prison service. It was just a stopgap. It was just, I'd been made redundant from Vodafone and I was looking for something in the interim. This came up. I thought, well, I'll do this for a little while. So yeah, I did that. And like I said, that I had the opportunity to work with lots of different individuals, understand their background, their stories, and I guess, have a different perspective on crime and have a different perspective on you are a product of your environment. That doesn't necessarily mean that any criminal behaviour is justified. However, we have to understand the whole picture. So I, worked primarily in Cat B prisons and in immigration removal centres. And within Cat B prisons, I saw lots of people that looked like they could have been my brother or my dad or my uncle. And that was difficult to kind of really, understand. And my role at the time was having, taking meetings with prisoners, supporting prisoners in terms of equality and diversity. So I had a lot of contact with them, which was fine. I had no issues with that. But just sitting with them and trying to listen to kind of their stories and how they got there and how they what happened, and then looking at all the immense kind of skills and the skill set that they had and the talent, and such a waste that they were kind of in this environment. That was sad. That was very difficult to get my head around. But I had the privilege of working with lots of different individuals and hopefully made some type of impact in their lives and hopefully made them think a little bit differently. Spoke to them as individuals, as humans, not as prisoners. I didn't, see them as that. I just saw them as humans. But that was really, really empowering to be able to, get someone to say, "Oh, miss you. I'm on this course now, and I'm on the course because you mentioned it. And when I get out, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and this, that, and the other." So it was really, and I guess because there aren't a lot of people from ethnic minorities within the prison service, there aren't many role models. I kind of was really pleased that I was able to do a little bit of that. And the higher that you go into senior management, the less kind of diversity you see. And then obviously nearer towards the point that I was leaving, I was kind of quite senior in my role, and I got to make some kind of really senior decisions and make some impact, which I'm really kind of proud of.
Yeah, because we're all one bad decision away from potentially being arrested. And as you say,
Absolutely.
Many people in the criminal justice system have made that one bad decision because their environment, their upbringing, the people they hang out with, or just something went badly wrong, and nobody sets out to be a career criminal until suddenly that's their life. And helping people be able to reverse back and not be judged on their entirety of this part of their life, and saying, well, actually, let's go back to before that. How can we find that person again and set them on a new course? That's the investment we need to make in people, isn't it? Rehabilitation.
The rehabilitation is key, and it's the most important thing. And I think for me, regardless of whatever role you have within the prison system, whether you're the governor, whether you're a middle manager, whether you're an officer of whatever grade, you have a huge part to play in the rehabilitation. You've got prisoners people looking at how you act. You are role models, essentially. So you're there, not just to lock doors and, do the other not so nice stuff. You're there as to support them in the way that they've probably never seen that support before. So lots of individuals have probably not had the privilege of having a comfortable environment with, a mum and a dad, and, they've probably seen things that many of us haven't had to, experience. So they're in effect, they're starting again in terms of their socialisation and understanding of humanity. So as working within the prison service, you've got to be conscious of that, and you've got to, step away from your own stereotypes, and you have to be completely unbiased in terms of how, you speak to people and how you treat people. And that is hard. That is very, very hard. But it's something that I guess you develop as you progress and as, as you work within the prison service.
Is the prison estate the best place to rehabilitate people? Because I think you're obviously hanging around in a culture, and no matter how much you want to rehabilitate yourself, escape from it, you're constantly being introduced to bad choices or bad relationships. I just wonder sometimes is whether the prison environment is the right place to rehabilitate, which is why people keep getting sucked back into it, or it's almost like you're in a swimming pool and there's chains, and you keep getting pulled back beneath the water all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the rates of recidivism, as in people leaving and then reoffending, are quite high, and they've been high for many years now. So I guess prison is probably not the place for rehabilitation for everybody. And I think at the moment it's kind of one size fits all, which it shouldn't be. There are a lot of people within the prison estate that are mentally unwell, and the prison setting is not gonna assist them in their well-being because of the way that it's set up. And on the other hand, there are people that absolutely need to be within that environment and absolutely have to abide by all the prison rules because that is exactly what they need. But, we live in a society that, the world is politically is just hugely just changing, and we don't know what's going to happen in the not so far future. But I think in terms of prisons, they do need some kind of, just reviewing. But when prisons work, they really work. So you've got your access to education, you've got access to new skills and training that you potentially might not have on the outside. So for somebody who wants to make that change and is willing to put the work in, the resources are there. So, there's lots of resources.
Does prison try to be too many different things? Because in one stream, it's there for punishment, for retribution, for the people who've been victimized, the people who've been traumatized. Or they want to feel that justice has been served. So that there needs to be that element of restricted access and punishment, quite rightly in some respects, but also the other side of that is preparing someone for life after. I guess if you're behind bars for a long time, 5, 10, 20 years, then you've got a lot of time to reflect, but you've also got a lot of time to rehabilitate, become a better person, to see the error of your ways. But is the prison system geared up for that sort of duality, if you like, of purpose?
I think when we kind of release prisoners back into the community, I don't think we've got that bit right. So the resettlement piece. So you've been inside for 10 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. You've served your sentence. You're due to be released. How do we support that individual? So from when they went in to when they come out, society has changed completely. It changes within months. Things do change. So how do we support those individuals to become fully fledged members of their community? Support them, not just financially, but support them psychologically as well. Because the space that they left behind 10, 15 years ago is not the same space. And then, there's the whole question around housing and how do we get them in employment, and all those areas there needs to be some more work done on that, and some of the areas there is progress that is being made, but you've got to really try and put yourself in those shoes and try and understand and navigate. How do you navigate a society that has changed beyond belief? And your IT, just to start off with technology, the different language that's used, the different everything is just completely changed. So you don't want that individual then, because they've not got that support, to revert back to how they used to be, which is an easy thing to do and can be done quite quickly, and it would solve everything, and they would just be able to get into their little kind of groups again and operate as they did before they were incarcerated. So the resettlement piece is huge.
So, as you're talking there, so if you were removed from society for 15 years, let's say that's 2010, you think about what's going on in 2010, the rise of mobile phones, AI, the televisions, the television programs, the fact we don't do cash anymore. We had COVID, and
Yeah.
there's a whole
It's
societal
huge.
culture has changed phenomenally in 15 years.
Yeah, I really do think that prior to resettlement, there's certain things that we need to be ensuring that, when offenders do leave, they've got everything that they need. And it's not to say that it's like a toolkit. Yeah, maybe a toolkit that they're armed with and they've got some support, but then the support's got to be ongoing. It can't just be, okay, that's it, now you're released, you're free to do whatever you want to do. I think there's got to be that wraparound support for at least a year, I guess, just checking in with that individual and supporting them.
Yeah, for me, I keep thinking about it. I look back at life in 1999. You think, for me, I just turned 61. And I look back and think, well, 1999, it didn't seem that long ago, but actually it's a different generation. Even when our children were born in the early 90s, you look back to that stage and the world's changed so completely. And you look at, I did TV series like Call the Midwife and places like that. You think, actually, it's now set in the year I was born. I was a 5-year-old in that time. Wow, it's so backward. So different from today, the attitudes, and so to be released into that world, you'd lack that cultural competency, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
You just don't understand the lingo, the language. It's like being in a foreign country.
Definitely. I think that's a really good way to describe it. It would just be like you don't speak the language anymore. You don't understand the culture anymore. It's all changed. And I can't imagine how difficult that must be.
And the knock-on of that is you would lack a sense of belonging and fit in society. So you'd feel like an outsider. You'd maybe feel frustrated and angry or unsupported. And you're more likely to affiliate with people who have a similar kind of feeling of, which are maybe the wrong crowd.
Yeah, and you've got to remember you've been living in an environment that is institutionalized, but you've been protected. You've been part of a community. Somebody's always asking after you. Someone, we need to make sure that you're safe and all of that. And then you go from that situation to where you are just a small fish in the pond, or whatever the terminology is. But to experience that is it's a lot, and I think that's why a lot of people decide that this is too much, it's too hard, it's too difficult. Let me just go back to the life that I know and I understand and that talks my language. And that's when it's very unfortunate and the prison system has failed, essentially.
People who leave the armed forces, they have come from that environment as well, where you know exactly what's expected of you every minute of the day.
Yeah.
Who's in charge, who you're in charge of. And as you say, someone checks in on you if something goes wrong, there's a support mechanism, and suddenly you're in the wide world and there's no rules, there's no enforcement other than be a good person and earn a living and find somewhere to live and fall in love or find some friends. But there's no rule book, is there? There's no instruction manual on that.
No, not at all.
So I noticed that you put in your notes there, you've recently been reintroduced to the gym. So you're finding fitness, are you?
Well, to get through this period of the redundancy and not, having to do a 9 to 5 currently, it was getting a little bit difficult, and I just needed to, there was no excuses anymore. I can go to the gym after I do the school run. I'm time rich now at the moment. I can drop the kids off and then just go to the gym for an hour. Do you know what? It's something that's really helping my well-being. It's something that's helping me, and I would absolutely recommend it. I know people are like, oh, it's the gym and I haven't got enough time, or I can't be bothered, or it's just too much. But actually, I've definitely experienced the benefits of it, and I am a good advocate for it. And I definitely think and as you get older as well, I think it's really important. Yeah, so I love going to the gym now. I do a few yoga classes here and there. I don't do anything too heavy because I'm not like, I'm not trying to build muscle or stuff like that, but I'm just trying to keep my body in tone and stuff. So just the treadmill, rowing machine, and the Stairmaster. That's it. Well, I'm good.
Oh, Stairmaster. Yeah, that's my nemesis. I don't mind the rowing machine. I don't mind the skiing. I don't mind the sit-on bike, the one, either the city up one or city down one or the treadmill.
Yeah.
Stepmaster, no, that burns.
It is hard, yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's probably my least favourite. I used to have a personal trainer for a while, and they'd say, you got the sled, haven't you? The one who had to push that along with the weights. I hate that as well. I said to my PT, I'd rather do the Stairmaster than the sled. And they went, what? Really? I said, I know. You know how much I hate the Stairmaster, but the sled, I just couldn't. I don't know. It's
a lot.
We all have our killer stance, don't we? The one thing that, so I'm one of these people that likes to plank.
Do you? You good? Yeah, that's good though. That's really good for your core.
I can do a minute easily. And I was doing a minute rest, minute rest. I could do 3. And I never quite got to the point where I was going to do more than that, but I always had this dream I was going to do 5 minutes one day. Maybe I'll go back to planking.
I'm sure you'll be able to manage it.
Yeah. But I can never do the bit where you lift your hands up and put them back down again, or you tap your shoulders and things like that.
That takes a lot of
just a straight plank.
upper strength.
That's me.
Yeah. That's still good enough though. That's still good.
Yeah. But I know what you mean. I haven't been for about 6 months. My wife and I, we've had some health difficulties. We've had bereavement issues. We've got a new puppy. So we've got lots of things going on in our life. And it just fell off the list. And now I'm taking the puppy for a walk every morning. My wife takes it every evening. And I'll do a couple of miles at the weekend per day, Saturday and Sunday. So we're getting out there and doing stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm getting some exercise. I do need to go back to the gym. So maybe you've just inspired me to go.
I hope so.
And anyone who's listening, what's your excuse if you're listening?
Even 30 minutes, you don't have to and just go a couple of times a week. That's it. And I like the gym that I go to because it's got like a women's section. Not that I'm ashamed of my body or anything, but within that space, you just feel like you feel comfortable and you can just do what you need to do. I'm not one of these that wants to be like in the middle of the gym and just like everyone looking at me, and I kind of just want to do my thing. Just want to walk in, do my thing, walk back out again, and that's it, job done. I want to be what's the word? Inconspicuous. Yeah, just in and out.
Because they can be quite intimidating spaces, can't they?
Definitely.
They've got their own. We talked about culture earlier, fitting in. You walk in there and think all these fit people, they've all got their act together, they've all got this, and they all need to know what they're doing. I'm walking in, so how to use the machines or what order, what's the protocol. And you think, it's still too difficult. I'm out.
Definitely.
As a newbie.
It is. It can be a bit daunting initially.
Yeah. Especially when everyone else is in tight lycra and
I know. I don't
fit.
get that. Yeah. That's something that's bit unusual for me, but whatever you feel comfortable in, I guess.
Yeah,
but not me. Not in tight
my bits are all wobbly now. I've got to baggy them up.
Well, after 5 kids, you just gotta be kind of serious and not be disillusioned in how you look or what your stomach looks like. So it's cool though. I'm good. I'm happy. But yeah.
Just looping back to some of your life, you've had some teenage years of having to reinvent yourself, having lived in an environment where the rules were defined for you, going off to university and realizing that, hey, I can do whatever I like now. coming back into an environment where they wanted to put you back in a straitjacket and you go, hang on a minute, no, I've experienced freedom. And you then worked in the prison, as you say, a couple of careers, but you worked in the criminal justice system where it's an environment where people are put into regimented, losing freedom of choice and freedom of expression. What do you take forward from this? What's your big thought about the whole thing?
I think for me, I've probably kind of gone full circle in terms of having worked in the prison system, and like you say, it's fully regulated. There's lots of rules and everything, and I think for me personally, I have had to working within the prison service has been amazing. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of trying to get up the career ladder or facing kind of not necessarily discrimination, but facing barriers, that's been quite difficult for me to kind of. It took me like nearly 20 years to get to the point that I was at, and that wasn't my final point. I did want to achieve more than that, but I think, whilst at home I had some real difficulties within the work environment, I had difficulties. So I can recall, once I did get the role the head of DE&I had to work with all the directors, and my first meeting, I walked in and there was just a sea of white, male, middle-class men, and I was the only person that wasn't of that description, and I had to sit at a table, and I felt so inadequate. I felt like, I'm not even supposed to be here. I didn't say anything within that meeting, although I had opportunities and I should have. I just didn't feel that I should have a seat at that table. Obviously, I had to do some real kind of like looking into myself and understanding that you are now at the table because you deserve to be at the table. Therefore, you have your voice and you do need to use it now. So gradually, as the meetings progressed, I understood what my role was. It was very hard because I had nothing in common. When we have like the conversations of, oh, what did you do at the weekend? And just little conversations, there was nothing that I could relate back to with them. And I almost found myself having to, and this is a really embarrassing thing to say, but almost having to make things up so that I fitted in, which I'm truly embarrassed and ashamed of now. Why did I need to do that? But at that point, obviously, I did need to do that just to fit in. But I think as I continued within my role and don't know what that noise is. As I became more part of the team, I understood what my role was, and I really kind of contributed in the way that I knew that I should and I could.
You've got a number of intersecting identities, and you're a woman, you're of non-white descent, so your ethnicity, you've got your religion, your faith, you've got your single parenthood, your children. You've got your fitness because you're now into the gym. Do those all layer on top of each other, or do you think one of those is a more of a challenge today than it should be? Being a single parent, it's not easy on its own, is it?
So everything that you've described does make part of who I am, and I'm one of those people that I don't. Some people like they see somebody and the first thing they look at is the ethnicity. Yes, that is part of me, but that is not all of me. And I think, having to like being a woman, being somebody from the Muslim faith, being a single parent, having mixed race children is a huge kind of thing and sometimes difficult to navigate. But I think that just kind of over the years, it's been hard, but I think over the years I've been able to understand each part of that intersectionality of me and try and combine it and put it together in the best way that I can. I don't want to be just a woman. I don't want to be just a Muslim. I don't want to be just, a female. All of those aspects kind of are really, really important. But when you combine them together, that's what makes it amazing, if that makes sense. So it's not one individual thing. It's when you put them all together that creates the person that I am today, the strength that I have, and the outlook that I've got on life. I could quite easily, and I could have done in the past, given up at different stages and thought, no, I can't deal with this anymore. I need to go back home where there's that comfort, where I'm going to get the support, the financial support. I can just go back home and I can just knock on the door and they'll have me back. They'll have me back. But I didn't choose to go down that road, because that would be giving up, and that would be giving up everything that I'd worked for. So that would not be a wise thing to do. So I think, the years, the things that I've experienced, from like homelessness, from other things that a lot of people have actually experienced, and, my children being taken to court and me having to kind of fight for them, having no representation, me going in and asking the judge, and all of that, being, kind of faced with all of that, has been really, really difficult. But actually, looking back, I don't think I would change anything, Joanne. I don't think I would. I would still make that same decision. If we rewind back to 20, 30 years ago, would I still decide to leave my home and start? Yes, I absolutely would. For what I've got today. The fact that I can do what I want when I want. I've got no one questioning anything. I'm independent. I don't rely on anybody. I am respectful. I am all of those things. And I have got freedom of thought, which was the main reason that I wanted to leave that environment, because I didn't have freedom of thought. I didn't have freedom of identity. And those two things were really, really difficult for me to accept. And had I stayed in that environment, I would definitely not have been the confident, vivacious, gregarious, whatever kind of descriptive, I would not have been any of those. So yeah, I think it's been a challenge. There's been lots of ups and downs. It's not been easy, but I definitely wouldn't change anything. I'd still do what I've done to get to this point where I am here and now. And obviously the point that I'm in here and now, again, is something that is a situation I've never been in. So I'm currently, I'm faced redundancy. I'm looking for employment. I'm trying to set up my own business. I'm doing all of these things, but this is a different chapter of my life now where I've just got to push through. I've just got to do the best I can.
Something you're saying there, and I think it resonates with me. If you like who you are today and you love your children, you love everything about what you've got, then you can't wish away something of your past, because if that past hadn't have occurred, you wouldn't be who you are today. You wouldn't have your children. And I look back at some of the mistakes I made. If I erased that mistake, I wouldn't have got married. If I hadn't got married, I wouldn't have my children. If I hadn't got my children, I wouldn't be. Every decision you make, you're the product of that growth and that learning. So you can't look back in regrets. You can't, to quote Oasis, you can't look back in anger. You can't look back in anything like this. What you've got to say is, I like me today. I like what I have. I like what I've achieved.
Yeah.
And that's all been learning. I can affect tomorrow, and let me make better decisions tomorrow.
And you're still working on being the best version of you, which you've got. That's an ongoing thing. That doesn't just happen and then that's it. You step away and I'm perfect. No, that is a continuous thing. But having the option to be able to do that is huge. So, no one makes any decisions for me. No one kind of tells you what I need to do, which is sometimes not necessarily a good thing, because you want to share things with other people. But in the same way, you've got that total freedom to, be the best that you can, and not be, blaming anyone else for anything, because ultimately you've made those decisions and you've made that choice. So, yeah.
And that is powerful. You live and stand by your own means, and you can look back and look at yourself in the mirror and just be very proud of that.
And to be honest, Joanna, I am proud of that. I am proud of the fact that I've experienced what I've experienced and I've come through the other end, and I'm proud of what I've achieved. I'm proud of the fact that I've bought my own house. I did all of that on my own, whereas, my siblings have support, and that's absolutely fine. But I'm happy with the way that I've tackled life, and I'm happy with the achievements. I've still got so much more to do. I'm not anywhere near where I want to be, but I'm on that path, and I'll continue to do the right thing, and I'll continue to be the best version of me.
I've been loved chatting to you for the last hour or so. How can people get hold of you?
Okay, so I am on LinkedIn, and I do post quite regularly. So if you want to kind of catch up on it on any of my posts there, and I can leave you my LinkedIn details after. Yeah, so that's primarily where you can kind of get hold of me.
So Misbah, M-I-S-B-A-H, or Ms, M-I-Z-Z to your friends?
No, I used to be a Ms, but then I thought, why am I shortening my name? The whole fitting in thing. So now it's my full name or nothing at all. So yeah, so it's Misbah. I can send you the details.
Gulzar, G-U-L-Z-A-R, but Misbah is your name.
Yes.
No more short, no more
No more
abbreviations.
abbreviated, not at all.
Yeah,
it's not hard to say. It's not, I know it's not your, common name and everything, but, it's quite easy to pronounce. So yeah, we'll stay with that.
But it's your name. That's the important thing. It's nobody else's. And I think that's fantastic. So thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us today, and I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Joanne. Thank you. Bye.
As we bring this conversation to a close, I want to express my deepest gratitude to you, our listener, for lending your ear and heart to the cause of inclusion. If today's discussion struck a chord, consider subscribing to Inclusion Bites and become part of our ever-growing community, driving real change. Share this journey with friends, family and colleagues. Let's amplify the voices that matter. Got thoughts, stories, or a vision to share? I'm all ears. Reach out to joe.lockwood@seechangehappen.co.uk and let's make your voice heard. Until next time, this is Joanne Lockwood, signing off with a promise to return with more enriching narratives that challenge, inspire, and unite us all. Here's to fostering a more inclusive world, one episode at a time. Catch you on the next bite.